Well, you know,
Wind
that's
beneath
the
their
way,
sail.
you know, you let the worms come in and corrode the state.
I hope
of
you're
the-
filming. Is that the camera
The
on?
body politic. Then when you got enough worms in there, then you start the revolt. We've done it time and time again.
Is that what you did when you were president of Screen Actors Guild?
No, I never did that. I don't indulge in such nefarious practices. Are you crazy? I'm
Well-
a decent citizen of the world.
Well, to those of us who are members
I
of
don't
your
stage
guild,
interventions.
to those of us who are members of our guild, you are a legend in your own time. You're a great
That's,
leader. You're a great
that's
leader and you're an
vastly
activist.
overblown.
Well, tell us about your activism, okay? Today you went someplace really special here in Missouri and
Yeah, this is a very special place. They buried the remains of first nuclear residue out by Logan Springs. It's a huge, I don't know, bunker, I think they call it, where all the nuclear waste is buried. And they questioned why the citizens of St. Charles would have allowed this thing to be buried there, but they thought it would be an innovative thing to serve their country. I think they've had a higher incidence of children cancer since it got there. Who knows? I don't want to be sued for libel, so I'll just maybe. Anyway, it's out there, and you are the proud owners of the, well, I guess, first recognized nuclear dump in the country, or the world, for all I know.
it's dreadful. It's just I'm so proud of you that you went out to see it today.
I was
So
forced.
I know you had a whole team that really.
My health has deteriorated since I've been there.
Well, I'm glad you went there and not maybe, we will do some moving and shaking, hopefully. I know I was involved with keeping the waste material from being dumped in Nevada.
Mhm.
And also I really admire your friend Martin Sheehan.
Mhm.
He's been arrested 60 times at the Nevada test site.
I think he likes confinement.
Okay. Speaking of laughter, I love to laugh with you. You're a perfect balance between activism and being very serious and taking our world serious, but you gotta laugh, right? Laughter's the best medicine.
Well, my son just cooked up a great one-liner.
Oh, I want to hear it.
What did the bald man say when he got the bill for his wig?
What?
To pay or not to pay? Good?
That's good. That's really good. Very good. Ed, you played in Anatomy of an Illness.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us how that came to you playing Norman Cousins? He's one of my great heroes.
Well, Norman Cousins really didn't want me. He said he always thought of himself as a greyhound and me as a bulldog. So he wasn't too happy when I first got the assignment. But after I got it and after he saw the film, he was quite pleased with me. He even had me to dinner a couple of times at his house. He was an important man. Saturday Review of Literature, and his stance in politics was wonderful. They had adopted at least one girl from the Japanese survivors of Hiroshima. So he was very important in the anti-nuke movement. And the director had I can't remember his name, had a crush on me. So he was straight, but he had a crush on me.
We all do.
Yeah, you're straight.
Guilty.
Are
I'm
you
straight.
Yeah. So he wanted me in the picture, so they cast me, and it did well. It was a good picture. And the main theme of it is that he was theoretically diagnosed as having spondylitis. I can't remember the last part of it. Which is bamboo spine. It means that, I guess it's a form of cancer or arthritis, I'm not sure which. That at some point during the course of the disease, you have to decide whether you want to live the rest of your life standing up or sitting down, because your spine will be curved accordingly. And he decided to fight it. Did all the reading he could, and decided that laughter and Linus Pauling's strong, screaming recommendation for vitamin C, huge doses of vitamin C and laughter. And he always kept running Marx Brothers movies, doing this, doing that, to keep himself laughing all the time. And in the end, he didn't have spondylitis. And he lived to die of old age. At one point in the film, he decides to play a joke on the nurse, and he pours apple cider into his pea cup. And the nurse comes and looks at it, oh, that's quite cloudy, we're gonna have to do something about that. And he grabs it and says, oh, yeah, that is quite cloudy. Let me process it again. She practically collapsed. Yeah, fun.
And you played that scene. That must have been so much fun. Oh my goodness, that's hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it hard to prepare for this, I mean, it's starring role. Was it hard to prepare for that role?
No.
What
You
kind
look
of
at the lines and if you like what they sound like, you give him your special magic. And I did.
Well,
I made him a convert at night.
I did, and I only saw the end of the film and I tried to get a copy, and it's like impossible to get a copy. I
Really?
can't figure that out, so I'm trying to get copies of it. Maybe we'll get
Maybe
Joe
I'm being
to
blacklisted.
play it over here at the Tivoli for us.
I think I'm being blacklisted.
Well, we got to make sure that doesn't happen, but it's a great film, and I only saw the end of it.
That's good.
Oh, okay. You always say cut, just stop, because we're going to edit this. Great.
Don't say shut up, though.
With Anatomy of an Illness, one of my mentors, Dr. Raymond Francis, read Anatomy of an Illness and saved his own life.
Really?
He had gone to MIT, he was a biologist, and he read the book, and the doctors couldn't help him, and he did exactly what Norman Cousins said in the book, saved his own life. And
Well, what
now-
did he have, do you know?
He had an immune deficient disease.
Ah.
And now he's a very famous author. He wrote a book called Never Be Sick Again
Yeah.
and Never Fear Cancer Again. And he mentored my son Adam when Adam was going through his process of cancer, which, by the way, I want you to know, proceeds from this production will be going to fund the Adam Mitchell Memorial Fund.
Bully for you.
My life is dedicated to expanding Adam's legacy. And last time I saw you was in your office with Adam. And I just...
Beautiful fellow.
Absolutely. And there have been 2 films dedicated to Adam. You know, he was a film director. And his film class called and said, Sheila, we'd like to dedicate our films to your son Adam. We really loved him. Adam was bullied a lot in his life, Ed. And so he did his film in film school about suicide and about being bullied. And Dean Patterson was his dean at Florida State University Film School. And he just said it was an incredible film because it came from his heart and his soul about the pains of being bullied through elementary school, middle school, high school, and then even in college. And so he made a whole film about his own life experience with that. And but Anatomy of an Illness, I did give it to Adam, but it was too late. They had gotten him where he was taking Oxycontin, I think is the way you pronounce it. Is that right? Oxycontin. Compton. And he couldn't comprehend what Anatomy of an Illness was teaching or what Raymond Francis was teaching. And I also brought him a copy of Calling of an Angel by Dr. Gary Glum. They've had thousands and thousands of people be healed with these natural Native American herbs. And he wrote the book, Calling of an Angel. And he's called yesterday and he said, Sheila, we will fund the Adam Mitchell Memorial Fund. by downloading Calling of an Angel with this production with fascinating people. And with Mother Earth 101, we have me101.org. And we're going to also cover the story that you just told us about the nuclear waste dump here. I mean, it's terrible. We can't trash Mother Earth. And we need to take better care of it, for sure.
This beautiful blue planet. And, you know, my love of man only goes so far. I hope that man is stopped before he destroys this wonderful blue jewel that we call the earth. Because the earth is more important than man.
Well, it's very precious. And I've been an activist since I was 11 years old, but not like you, not on the scale that you have been. What was your first experience with activism? I mean, really standing up for what you
Well, I always thought I was just pussyfooting around, giving money where I could, not really being. You know, when you're a performer, you don't want to get caught out on the limb for being controversial and have a limb chopped off. I was always careful not to be too noticeable. Most performers are like that. But when I saw the films of the death squads in El Salvador, I had certainly been successful long enough being the star of the Lou Grant show that I felt I had to say something, do something about these poor people who were being victimized in El Salvador. I identified with a group called Medical Aid for El Salvador, which was designed to bring medical goods into El Salvador for the peasants in the provinces where the federal government of El Salvador was not providing them with health. And it immediately became branded as a commie plot, commie organization, commie support. And I became tagged. So it was really my first step out into the void, and by God, I fell with a thud, and had to pick myself up afterwards.
What year was that?
That was 82.
82. That's right before Adam was born. And how did you pick yourself up? Because you did really good. You know, you've got more awards than any actor living.
Most of those came before I became tagged as a commie. Our mutual agent, Jack Fields, said that I thought I was finished in the business. But he said the fact that every time they leveled an accusation at me and I responded, I didn't go hiding. He said that's what kept me alive.
Way to go.
So, if it happens to anybody else, fight back. Don't let the bastards grind you down.
Say that again, please. I love that.
I said, fight back, don't let the bastards grind you down.
That's very wise. You know, I used to go with Jack and you to the Cesar Chavez events where Dennis Weaver would be there, Martin Sheehan. He pulled everybody together to raise money for the grape pickers in California. And he had me go up and give the check a lot of times, but it was wonderful to be involved with that circle of activists and people that weren't afraid to stick their neck out and take the risk and speak up for the little guy who was really suffering. We have to speak up for those that are less fortunate than we are, for sure. Jack used to say, love, peace, and brown rice. Remember that?
All the time.
He said everyone can eat if we focus on brown rice, love, and peace. Speaking of peace, what about world peace? Do you think we'll ever achieve world peace?
Not unless we get a lot smarter and less greedy. The world is heading for a huge confrontation. What's going to happen in it, I don't know. China now has 1,300,000,000 people, and has an enormous effect on the world economy. India will pass up China in about 2030. So that will be way over a billion. Now, what all of these huge masses of people will do concerning us Westerners, who in terms of color, the whites are the minority of the world, let's face it. Africa, after it gets over its bloodletting between various nations here, there's an emergency
Cut just
now.
a second. We have an emergency here. I'm hoping I turned mine off.
Hello?
Sheila, his pants leg down. See his pants leg?
Yeah. Yeah, what about it? I'm in the middle of an interview. Can I call you right back as soon as I finish this? All right.
I'll get to those
Thank-
questions. I just need somebody to keep me with time. And I have 10 minutes left.
What?
Okay.
What was I saying?
Thank you for taking care of that emergency.
Yeah, I'm sorry
Okay,
about
that's right. Anytime you have to say cut, we'll film it
Well,
over.
they'll cut.
Yeah,
I don't have
this
to
is a
go
great
on.
editor we have. We have the best team possible, right here in St. Louis at the Loop.
I'll see if that's true. I see the final cut.
I promised him the best interview of his life. So,
So, with those numbers and the horrendous, well, you know, this financial crisis is teaching us, although the Asian world is not as involved as we are. They're touched, but they all live off of us anyway, at this point. And we can see how directly tied into Europe we are. We're waiting to see, the stock market went down 350 points yesterday, all because they're scrambling around with Greece and Italy and God knows who else. So we're intertwined.
global
And
economy.
And after we find out how they exist while being intertwined, then I'm sure that Asia will become part of it. I started to say that Africa will be one of the huge, I think they read where Africa itself will surpass the population of China. So we've got to start limiting, Catholic Church notwithstanding, we've got to start limiting how many people there are to be in this world. We are using up the world faster than we can feed ourselves. And I guess we won't find out anything more about that until we can feed the people who are starving elsewhere. And maybe that'll teach us.
Well, a lot of us are starting our own gardens, and there's some really great things happening here in this area of St. Louis.
Then I have to
And
come
you have
over
to come
and
here
feed
to-
off you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Put my name down.
Would you talk to us, Ed, about your family and about Charlie, your son?
Well,
We want to, because I know you're very involved with autism, and
I have 4 children. They are all wonderful, wonderful. I love them, adore them. My youngest is in his 3rd year at the University of Southern Connecticut. He's autistic. He's a high-functioning autistic. And the bottom line of whatever I do in life is to ensure that he is shielded, protected, and allowed to blossom due to the limited circumstances concerning his existence in the world. The biggest problem with autistics is societal relationships, getting them to function well, to be accepted, to be tolerated by their abruptness, their so-called lack of consideration, which is not true, to their fellows. They are on a different wavelength. And the main job of every and any autism organization is to teach the world what autists are like, and particularly including the police, who can be trigger happy sometimes, and not appreciate what a particular social problem creature is like, and use traditional strong arm methods. That's not necessary in the case of an autistic. The police have to learn and understand how to deal with them.
Did that happen to Charlie or some of his
No,
friends?
no, I can remember one time when he was a kid, I got stopped by a cop. Cop came up to him, and he's sitting next to me, he says, "Do you know who you're talking to?" And he's a, I had to do some quick cover. I mean, he's not that way now. But
He's in university. That's
Yeah.
really amazing. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
and I'm very proud of him.
And you had twins,
Yeah, boy-girl twins.
boy or girl twins. That's so terrific. 4 kids. That's
Too much.
no,
this
no,
world.
it's not too much.
Too much in it.
You know, when I fly from St. Louis to LA, there's a lot of land down there. A lot
Yeah,
of
but I don't
desert.
think it's got water.
Well, maybe we could take our floodwaters from Missouri, make some canals, and take the water there.
I'm still waiting for that pipeline coming down from Canada.
Right. We can
We're
make
gonna
some
be
water.
buying water from Canada if we're smart.
Well, we need to be smart
Or
about our
learning how
water.
to take seawater and make good use of it.
Well,
But you also know something, we talk about seawater, but when you get the residue out of seawater, that are left with water, the enormous dumping grounds and hazardous waste that you may well have with the residue, it's going to require enormous dumping areas.
well, I feel like we should find a way to canal the floodwaters from the Middle West, and or some way to get it.
Starve the fish is your motto.
No, I'm not an expert, but some way we've got to solve the problem. I know.
Of course.
John Robbins wrote Diet for a New America. He did a great DVD, and that really tells you how the best way to
Well,
clean up the earth. and handle the water.
Everything is economical. Wind, solar, aqua power, it's all less damaging to our earth than the black gold. And but it's up to governments to make it economical or to override the economical cost to create a planet of breathable existence. And of course, the fact that we're driving those cars certainly doesn't help everything.
That's true. I know you work with Ed Begley Jr. and the
He's a
concern
big
about
one.
Mother Earth.
He's a big conversation.
Oh, amazing. Absolutely. We have somebody here, Ed, that is very interested in hearing about Up. And she's a screenwriter. Mary's the one who set this whole thing up. Mary
Oh,
over
hi,
there.
Mary.
And she's actually very interested in some questions about what animated films that you might choose, because she's written one that she thinks that you're going to love. Well, I know you're going to love it because it's from Mary. But she was interested in hearing about
Well,
Up.
let her talk.
All right, Mary, come on. Come on, give us your first question.
Is there any dream role that you'd like to do?
No.
No.
I always used to question myself about what kind of actor I was. Because you run into actors all the time who had their King Lear, who had their Willie Loman. And I have just felt so blessed with the roles that I had that I was quite happy to just keep doing whatever I got offered once I fought for it. So the role is yet to be written.
What does attract you to a film or a TV project? What in the script makes you say, I want to be that character?
What attracts you? I'll repeat it because I'm on mic.
Right.
What attracts you to a project or a character?
I just got a script from a guy on about Job. And he wrote a beautiful script. But in it, I wanted to end a particular way, and that's not the way he wants to do it. But it deals with the fact that the devil, Satan, admits to having caused Job great, horrible discomfort, lives, health, loves, and finds out that God didn't really care. That God took the wager, he did it, he gambled it, and he's not ashamed of what he did. So, I talk about God having shame. So, I want the peace to end, and it won't be this way. I would love the peace to end with Satan saying, you don't feel any regret to God. And this, no, I needed to do what I did. I would then like to have Satan turn as if to the camera or to the audience and say, where is God? And that's the way I see it.
That sounds like a very good role, a very good
Well,
project. Ed, would you tell us about the Abraham Lincoln Brigade and the part that's possibly coming up soon? You know, I don't want to speak in the wrong direction. Do you feel like
Don't
telling
get
us
me wrong.
about the
I've-
Abraham Lincoln
I have
Brigade?
been carrying around a script which I adore, which you adore, called Dancing with Sancho Panza. And it deals with three Americans who find themselves involved in the Spanish Civil War. It was a war that we and the rest of the West chose to stay out of and not even arm the Spanish Republic, while Germany and Italy were pouring troops and planes into it, and thereby helping Franco and the fascists to defeat the free leaders of Spain. We should be ashamed for that. Roosevelt may have had his hands tied, so I can't comment on that. But that war was the testing ground and the initial phase of World War II.
Excuse me just a second, Ed. Is it getting too loud out there? Do we need to cut and
Scott.
repeat anything? Well, will you just repeat about the Abraham Lincoln Brigade and John Hertzler?
John Hertzler wrote this beautiful script about these three Americans who, one's a beautiful girl and she goes over to drive an ambulance in Spain. And the other two are ball players for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And one gets canned because he helped pull down the Nazi flag on the Bremen, which was docked in New York Harbor. So he gets tossed in jail and the Dodgers fire him. So he follows her. He gets bailed out of jail by the Spanish diplomat that she talks into bailing him out as well. And he follows her to Spain and joins the Lincoln Brigade. The younger guy, the Tim Robbins type, is a promising pitcher, but he throws his arm out. So he's on the disabled list for another year. So he's got nothing to do, and he's terribly drawn to the girl as well. So he goes over to Spain, and he too joins. The Abraham Lincoln Brigade was a brigade formed. All nations of the West created brigades to help they were volunteers. There were 3,000 Americans in the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. 1,500 of them died by the end of that war. The others came home. And eventually, they served in the U.S. Army or Navy, whatever, during World War II. Those 1,500 were given a designation which was called premature anti-fascist. That's the name that they were listed under in the files of the U.S. government. And they served well. Many of them may have been communists, but they fought for this country and served well. So this is the story of how these three people end up in Spain, and the two men die. She comes back with the daughter of a friend who was murdered by the fascists, and starts a teaching career in New York City. And the movie opens with her being questioned by the House Un-American Activities Committee. And at the end, we return to her being questioned by the House Un-American Activities Committee. And they want her to name names. As was the procedure of the House Committee, to get names and persecute those names along with the people that they were interrogating. So she says, yes, I'll give you names. And she starts listing the names of the dead Lincoln Brigaders. And that's our story.
It's an incredible script. And how, did John just come to you? How did he get that to you?
I had briefly met John, and he knew I was trying to produce, and he brought the script to me, and I fell in love with it.
Tell us about Quince Productions, speaking of
Quince
producing.
Productions is really the name, even how I came to name it.
Yes.
When I was decided I had to incorporate myself, being a big Hollywood showboat, I couldn't decide. At the time, we had 3 kids, my wife and myself, so I said, that's Quince. And I always loved the character Peter Quince from Midsummer Night's Dream. It's a cute-looking fruit, so I named it Quince.
Well, it's a great production company. And
It makes your mouth water when you do it.
It does.
Quince.
I'll never forget being in your office with Adam, and all I said was, is there any new projects you're looking at? And you said, here's the one right here. You chatted that script, and I just got real brave, took a breath, and said, could I read it? And, I mean, once I read it, I was caught hook, line, and sinker. It's the most incredible
It's a great
script.
love story.
It really is a love story, but it's also a true story, based on a true story.
The Mexican director, Mendoki, likes it, and we have hopes that he'll do it.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it in the big screen and seeing you on the big screen. Isn't there a baseball? There's a lot of parts that would be great for you, but there's a baseball manager from the New York
Yeah, I would play
Yankees
that from the Dodgers. I would play that in Sancho Panza, but it's just a supporting role.
Well, whatever you play or participate, it'll be a great film. Speaking of baseball, you know, we have Albert Pujols here, who just...
Who?
Albert Pujols, who
Who?
just... And
What an unusual name.
he's also involved with helping children with autism.
Yeah, I know.
As a child
I
with
know.
autism. And of course, did you watch the World Series with the 3 home runs he hit?
I looked at it occasionally.
You like baseball, I know. Quite a World Series.
Congratulations, St. Louis, by the way, you know. She was trickling me in, but it's a fantastic series. And at the outset, you think, well, who's going to be watching on TV? Because none of the great coast teams, formerly great coast teams, are in it. And by God, you got Texas and St. Louis, and Texas looked favored. And never count St. Louis out.
Oh,
I mean,
thumbs up to that.
I come from Kansas City, but it's nice to to realize that greatness lay so close to my birthplace.
You were born in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Is it a great place to grow up?
Oh, yeah. I call Kansas City a gentle place to grow up.
Oh, that's good.
There might have been suicides, I suppose, but.
Like any city, huh?
Yeah. And there was the usual racism when I was growing up, and the anti-Semitism. But compared to a lot of other places, it could have been a lot worse.
Well, you have quite a legacy, and I don't know what that word says to you, but after my son Adam passed away last year, exactly a year from now, I started thinking seriously about legacy and what I can do to make the world a better place. Would you say a few words besides all the activism you're doing? And I feel through film, I had this dream that we would find a way to get all the people with conflict around the planet to submit their stories, tell your stories, maybe through Fascinating People or me101.org, and help us to learn how to communicate in a better way. I've always learned something from films. I mean, films, almost always that I like, have a message. So that's connected with your legacy and what you're contributing to the world and the consciousness of the world and how we can take action to make it a better world. Any thoughts about legacy besides all the things we've already talked about, all the awards and all the films and television and theater? I mean, you're doing FDR. That's a one-man show tonight here at Linwood University. That's part of your legacy, to be doing a one-man show with FDR.
FDR is my legacy. I heard he was dead when I was 15 years old, and it's like God the Father had died. The greatest president we may have ever had. And we're sorely in need of such a president now. Or at least one who can accomplish what he accomplished. Since many of the conditions are similar. Granted, they're much more complex than they were when FDR was president, but he was light years ahead of his predecessors. Out there, a page from Occupy Wall Street, there's people from disparate ways of life who are sorely unhappy with the conditions in our country. And it's conditions throughout the world. I met one of the leaders of Occupy Wall Street. And he said, this is not a national movement. This is a global movement.
I agree with that.
To start cleaning up the horrendous economic quagmires we find ourselves and put ourselves in. So it's only through individuals linking with individuals and more individuals and setting off to wipe clean the slate from all the besmirching that the slate gets from various conditions in life, be it the greed of financial manipulators, be it health management organizations, be it educational bureaucracy that pisses away the enormous amounts of funds that come in to raise and educate our children, who seem to be becoming worse and worse, particularly in this recession.
And
Roosevelt gave a speech in early '45 before he died, talking about the second four freedoms, guaranteeing those second four freedoms. They consisted of health, education, housing, and jobs. And if he had lived and achieved that, we'd be a lot better off today.
And add some justice there.
What's that?
Add some justice.
There will be justice, I think, if we can stop. Yeah, I mean, this country is so stupid. It's got over 2 million people in the penitentiaries, vastly more proportionally than any other country in the world. Now granted, we still got a death penalty. Most Western nations, all of them, I guess, don't have a death penalty. We are a backward, third world country when it comes to justice. The vast majority of those people in the jug are probably there for possession of marijuana.
It's very sad.
And they get damned by the conviction, and they get slapped into jail. A very good case in point. A lot of people will disagree. There's a young Latino kid in Florida, 28. He's in jail for the rest of his life because he had child pornography in his home. He wasn't hurting any kid, but he got a worse sentence than if he had molested a child.
Don't you usually follow the money?
Huh?
Isn't it important to
No,
follow the money?
I,
It's big business having
I-
big penitentiaries, and
Well,
people are making a lot of money.
oh, I know, privatizing the death mills. It's stupid. And most of those people should be, I'm so glad when the courts come in and say, you're too crowded, you gotta let a bunch of people out. And they're forced to. They did that in California. And I would love for them to come in and say, let those dopers out on the street, stop it. And reduce that prison population. I mean, we just had they starved themselves. The solitary prisoners at Pelican Bay starved themselves to protest the conditions that they live in.
I didn't know about that. Mm.
And they made a point. I think they got a little lessening of the severity of their because it's, I'll never forget Until Death Do Us Part. I think it was an Irish picture. And it showed what the Irish prisons were like. Showed all the Irish revolutionaries in there. They had open door cells, for God's sake. They had TVs. They were busy mingling. There was no solitary. Unbelievable. Now, they may have it, but they weren't doing it to those guys. So why can't we have some of that enlightenment? The guards unions. I got a letter from a guy, he's 50-something. He went in when he was 20-something for murder. 78, he was given 7 to life. And you look at him when he was young, he was pretty. So I guess they made a butch of him.
Very sad.
And he's now spent 34 years and never been paroled. And he's asking me if he gets out, and he thinks he will. He knows how to be straight now and not piss off the guards. So if he gets out, he's looking for some kind of job as a stuntman or working with animals. And now he's like this. Amazing.
John Hertzler and I have been talking about a university for activists under the website me101.org, teaching people how to be independent scholars and free thinkers, and how to be, did you go down to the people on Wall Street who were camped out on Wall Street? John did. John was there, John Hertzler. And so we're feeling like we need a voice, and they need leadership and guidance to make sure we make creative, positive, peaceful change, which I do believe is coming. I think more and more people are speaking out, but we need, everyone, I think, should be an activist to be, speak your truth.
Well, when enough Americans take to the streets, they might achieve. And I talked to this guy who was one of the creators of Occupy Wall Street. And he said they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That it's a worldwide movement, and that they're not going to take simple pap as answers. They'll be starting working towards getting satisfaction.
Well, people are hurting. People are hungry. People are jobless. It's all around
The
us.
banks still haven't recalled those mortgages, let people try to work it out, or even reduced the mortgages themselves, which is a very frequently called for panacea for the housing crisis, because they're not building any new houses. So we're working with the ones we got.
And we treat our veterans so badly too. I don't mean to be on such a down.
And there's a flood, by the way, of people withdrawing their funds from banks and putting it in credit unions.
Oh, we mentioned that. That's full
Mhm.
circle. Well, maybe Mary will write a script for us. Mary, did you have some more questions for Ed?
I'd like to know what's the best part about being an actor?
What's the best part about being an actor?
You can shoot your mouth off without responsibility, as long as the script has been okayed.
What's the worst part?
The worst part, as I discovered when I spoke out, in Washington, D.C., where I announced the formation of Medical Aid for El Salvador, the huge press conference, the first time you could really say I had spoken out. And the second guy to question me said, you say you're in favor of free elections in El Salvador. And I said, yeah. I said, what if those elections turn out a communist government? And bam! I said, now I realize why people keep their mouths shut. How I can't, ooh. And I mumbled some kind of crappy answer, and went on to the next question. And I was so haunted by the fact I'd come all the way to Washington to talk about this group, and I had not stepped forward in all those years. I said, I came all this way to waffle. And I said, I wasn't satisfied with my answer. And I would say to you that if it's the government the people of El Salvador choose, then let them have it. And I knew I was dooming my career when I did it. And people would say, he's giving union money. And they tried to becloud the issue. But the bottom line was that the unspoken line was that I was a commie. And so I underwent a blacklist of sorts for a while. But constantly fighting back, it didn't keep me off the air. And it wasn't nationwide organized like it was in the 40s and 50s. So I had a chance to come up through some air holes. And eventually I got past it. I became known as a loudmouth and too outspoken. And if you had certain principles that you were afraid I might endanger, you won't hire me. But in the main, people just think of me as a loudmouth.
You know, you were kind enough, Ed, to entertain Adam and his father one day. Adam called me and said, Mom, Dad's coming in town. He's going to be here for like 6 or 8 hours, and I don't know what to do with him. He doesn't want to go to the movies. He doesn't want to do this. I said, call Ed Asner, because Ed had been...
Thanks, Sheila.
No, he stood up against Arms in Space, and he was blacklisted as an astronaut. And I
Really?
interviewed him for Fascinating
I
People,
didn't know
certainly.
that. That's good.
Yeah, so you were kind enough to spend the afternoon with Adam and his dad.
I enjoyed it. What were you going to say?
I was going to ask you if you usually do stick right to the screenplay or if you want to improvise sometimes.
Well, certainly. You don't, if you're going to be doing the improvising, you don't take the part. And you're supposed to, you know, when I did Mary Tyler, we were all stage actors, all disciplined. But those two producers said, you don't drop a comma, you don't say, drop an and, the, or a. And it was very good, strong discipline to be refreshed with. They made us treat them like master authors. When I left Barry Townmore and went on to other writers, then I realized it. You don't get the same writing, and you gotta buck it up, find a way to buck it up. And I was smarter by then. But in the main, you don't take a script if you're going to be rewriting it all the time.
Jack Lemmon liked a script that was like that. Everything's on the page, but then I work with Francis Ford Coppola on Gardens of Stone, and he's the opposite from what I'm told.
He's a director.
John Milius, a writer-director too,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
John Milius, by the way, is from St. Louis, and he wrote
Really?
Apocalypse Now and
mhm.
big films.
Is he still living?
Yes, well, he just had a stroke, but,
Get better.
yeah, I'll tell him, I'll send him your message to him. Mary, any more questions? Anyone else?
I always have questions.
All right, let me say it on the mic though, because
Sure,
we'll lose it
sure.
if I don't say it.
I'd like to know about film versus television, because it seems to me in film you get like a certain number of retakes, and sometimes in TV it has to be done so quickly, and you just hurry
No,
up and do it.
as opposed to film and if you're with a good film organization, you'll get the retakes in TV as well. I'll never forget when, Hal Gould was doing a guest spot on Lou Grant. And it was a traveling show. We went upstairs and round, and we did it about 7 times. He said, you get to rehearse on this show. That's great. They were takes that needed to be done and had. So if it's a low budget, they're not in film. They're not going to let you do the retakes anyway. So TV, I think, gets the actor. Although I'm hearing bad stories that a lot of the young actors coming on TV now don't master their speeches and are doing it piecemeal. And I think that if that's true, and they're hiring those guys, that's the beginning of the end.
Would you consider doing an internet series?
Would you consider doing an internet series?
I don't know what doing an internet series involves. I think I have, but I didn't know it at the time. I would have to know where it's going, what I'm being paid, of course, and what the scripts are like. Everything's in the Word. What you write.
Yeah.
Tell us about Up, a little bit. I don't know, how's our time?
It works 20 till 5.
Okay, we have
So-
20 minutes, or till
How long
5?
does it take?
No, it takes a half an hour to
Takes
get
about
there.
20 minutes to
Or 20 minutes to
25.
get
All right, a couple more minutes.
Okay, do you want to say anything about Up, or you rather talk about something else?
Well, Up is, I didn't know it was the masterpiece it was turning into. I'm delighted to have been a part of it. But I think Pete Docter and Bob Peterson, who created it, Pete Docter mostly. Pete Docter's daughter did the little girl in it, Ellie. And I think it is as much, if not more, an adult film than a kid's film.
Oh, it's a wonderful film. My grandchildren liked it, but I love it too. It was wonderful. Did you have a lot of preparation for it, or just go in and do it?
You know, prepared.
Oh, that's great. Did you ever work with Lorene Tuttle?
No.
No? She was an old-time radio star
Yeah,
in film. She
yeah.
was one of my mentors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love Lorene Tuttle. Lorene Tuttle. A little blurb there.
Have any more?
I do. Do you have any words of advice for people who'd like to break into screenwriting? Because it seems like it's such a tough nut to crack.
Everything about Hollywood, film, TV, is the world is crowded. Everybody else, people are unemployed everywhere else. They still keep making movies and TV though. I learn it. Learn the other areas. Go work, be a grip on a movie. Learn how movies are made. Learn how the cutting process takes. Some of the most successful directors have been editors. Learn how to edit film. And I'm sure it will even aid one as a writer. I can't say it would affect an actor that much, but if an actor is unemployed, he should do all those things too.
Now, how do you, if you're a member of Screen Actors Guild, for example, how do you juggle that? Is there a
Juggle
secret?
what?
Working on a project that's not Screen Actors Guild, and you're
I
a
don't
member.
do that.
I know, I don't do it either. That's why
Well,
I'm.
you're not supposed to.
Yeah, I
You
know.
belong to the union.
I'm
you
in
don't
the
work
union.
on-
Yeah, I
so
can't.
why ask the question?
Okay, stupid me. Okay, dumb question. I'm allowed one dumb question, okay?
No, I should be disciplined and brought to trial by the union, which would mean punishment of some sort, either a certain amount of money or, now there are people in the union, John Voight is one of them, who belong to that special category, don't believe in unions. So only a certain amount of their union dues go for the union. Anything goes for publications or for special notifications, anything like that, they have to add to his, they don't cut out of his pay or his dues. So I forget.
That's okay. You know what I want to hear is your mentors. Tell us about your mentors. I mean, that thing with SAG, I shouldn't have even gone there. But I want to hear, can you mention a few of your mentors? Or, I mean, you were in Second City, right?
No.
No? Tell us where
I
you
was
were.
in Paul Sills, who was my director in the theater before Second City. And he was brilliant, and he had a great flair for theater, and I learned well under him. I studied with Mira Rostova in New York and felt that my natural method was what she did. Her method was called doings, that everything you say has an active verb behind it, to inform, to convince, to intimidate, whatever. But even if you're doing a soliloquy, you are talking to somebody. If it's be your inner self, but you have a purpose in that line, and you try to string them together and make sense out of what you're saying. I studied with other teachers, and I did not care for them.
So we won't mention them, but
No.
yeah.
No.
What advice do you
I'll
have for
let
the young
them
actors?
rest in their graves. What?
In grabbing the character and staying in character. I've seen some fabulous films, but sometimes the actors don't stay in character, and it's like some directors get it and some don't. Or how do you? I mean, it's just
Bad
a gift.
actor,
Is it a gift?
bad director.
It's
That's
a
all I can
gift.
tell you.
It's a gift you have, though.
What's that?
A gift you have of staying in character. I mean, you're doing FDR as a
No,
one-man
as
show.
I'm trying speaking the line, is that the character or is not? You don't have to pass an intelligence test to know that.
Okay. More questions, Mary? Any
Yeah,
more?
is there a role that you really wish you hadn't turned down as you look back?
No role that I've turned down that I regret.
That's good.
They're rejecting me before I get the chance. Yeah.
Oh. You know, most actors say they want to play King Lear.
Yeah.
No, okay. You know, I have a message.
Sam Waterston didn't get great reviews for just doing it, so maybe that's a good reason not to.
Okay. I have a message for you from Marcia Mason.
Yeah?
She said, bravo, bravo, that you were giving this interview here in St. Louis. She was born and raised here.
How much you pay her?
I didn't pay her anything. She really
Wow.
loves you, and she said she worked with you. Do you remember working with Marcia?
What's it?
What did you work on?
Oh, radio plays, stuff like that. But if Marcia Mason is an example of the talent that can come out of St. Louis, then it's a golden city.
It is a golden city, and I love St. Louis. Think you could say you love St. Louis for us?
Yeah, I'd say no.
Oh, not like that.
Well, that's what you said it.
I love St. Louis.
I love
Oh,
St. Louis.
Okay, and I love the
And I
Loop.
want to kiss Albert Pujols.
And I love the Loop. How about the Loop and
Oh, I
and
love the
Joe?
Loop and all the loopy people in it.
And Joe Edwards, he was our host today.
He was a great host, got a great pastry chef, and a best mushroom soup I've ever had.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Great. It's a great place for a party, the Moonrise Hotel and the Loop.
I think I'm gonna get a ponytail like his.
I think that's a good idea. Absolutely. All right.
I have one thing.
How's our time? Mike,
Quarter
what's the
till
question?
5.
Okay, Mike.
One
what's the
thing we
question?
talked about, if you could give a little shout out to Missouri as a filmmaking location, as your home state, a beautiful state. And
Not my
just,
home state, but go ahead.
Just
You're born
some
here.
encouragement to our state legislature and state government to to provide some tax credits so that all of us in this room can get some more work.
They took our tax credit away. They took our office for the film office away.
I think it's shocking.
Just wait a second. Okay.
I think it's shocking that in these times that the legislature, who undoubtedly have grudges against filmmaking, thinking that it's for putting up pretty actors who run away from here to live in Hollywood, that filmmaking creates an amazing amount of ancillary profits from wherever they make films. The cleaners, the laundries, the housekeeping, the hotels, the restaurants, the hospitals, all benefit from the residents of a movie company in your particular town in Missouri. And your GNP will certainly rise every time you do anything, be it tax credits or whatever you can do to foster filmmaking. It's worked every time. I'm on the Oregon Film Board, and they back us up unbelievably well. They know what it's like to get films made, and the amount that they increase each year is phenomenal. So if Missouri's smart and not letting itself lie in the backwoods, they'll do whatever they can to foster film production, be it locally or be it from out-of-state companies getting tax credits here to make magic.
Thank you, Ed. That's really wonderful. You know, it's much better than planting nuclear waste, don't you think?
Nuclear.
Nuclear waste.
Yeah.
It's much better than
Much
planting
better,
nuclear
much better.
waste.
Mucho mejor.
And it's non-polluting the film industry.
Buenos dias, Alberto.
Thank
One
you.
more.
Oh,
Just
one
real
more.
quick, I have Asperger's. Does your son have Asperger's?
No, he's high-functioning autistic. I think I'm glad to see how normal you are.
You have to hang around me a little more. And you'll
Well, we want him to come back, so we're all inviting you to come back.
You
to
might
St.
like
Louis.
my little way of describing living with undiagnosed Asperger's. When I use manners, I can't taste the food.
Well, I want to tell you, I didn't know this by meeting you, but you undoubtedly must be highly intelligent.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ed. Oh, happy birthday, Asner. Happy 39th again.
Yes, Mommy.
39th birthday again.
Oh, that is great. That's great.
And they just
The
put some
huge
air
crane, took a
conditioning.
humongous crane. So here's this fancy hotel design.
Hey,
Hey, Ed!
Hip hip hooray!
Hooray! Hip hip hooray!
Happy birthday, Ed!
You do have the chefs and the bakers. My God. Sheila, you're a dingbat. I swear to God.
That's why you like me so much.
Here, wait a minute.
Claire
Did
is a
themselves.
great pastry.
Yeah, show the
That's
sauce.
fantastic.
Now,
That is.
Joe,
I have
Joe,
to blame
what
Joe.
is the significance of all that on the
Yes,
page?
Joe.
This is Limburger cheese.
I have to blame Joe.
Good, that's great, thank you.
These are my balloons, as you know.
That's the
My
moon.
trademark,
Oh, the balloon's
depicting my
right.
butt.
Ed, this is Claire, the pastry chef. She made this
Pleasure to
for
meet
you.
you. Thank you very much. Happy birthday.
Is that
What are you doing
unbelievable?
with these balls?
Having a great time.
Sheila.
So what is that?
Explain some of that.
Joe, what is the, can you tell us
that would-
about the cake and the significance of some of these things?
Well, the stars are probably
Have another
St. Louis
drink,
Walk
Joe.
of Fame. I will. I need another couple. The stars are St. Louis Walk of Fame related, I'm assuming. This
Here's
is
the trolley.
There's the loop trolley, which is going to come back in about a year and a half. Last run in 1966. The world's largest man-made moon is on top of this hotel. That was the story I was in the process
yeah.
of telling you. When it was looking, what can I do that's whimsical and make it an iconic building? So I said, damn, we're going to build the largest man-made moon and have it rotate. where people can watch it go through the phases 24 hours a day. And that's what is up there now.
Oh, is that a heavy son of a bitch? Oh my God, is that heavy?
You want a piece of cake? Can you
Well,
handle a
I
piece of cake?
think, you know, this work of art, do you want to destroy it?
It says
What's-
happy birthday
what-
Ed on it.
It's not only beautiful, it's delicious too. It's a strawberry banana cake with vanilla buttercream.
Oh, Jesus.
Thanks to Stephen. He's the one who told me you like strawberry.
Did he tell you that?
Strawberry
He's a lying
banana.
son of a bitch.
He also,
But
then he
it
added
sounds
carrot.
great.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think the chef ought to stand over there.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
Come here, chef.
Chef, come on, let's get some
You
And
pictures.
take
if I
some pictures
grope
and
you,
I'll
you know,
send
it's just part of the cake treatment.
Oh, that's a beautiful picture. Great.
Does this look good too?
Yeah,
Let me get that one.
yeah, look this, after she's through then.
Okay.
Boy, you have some good,
Okay, now if you
Fur
look this
banana.
way for one quick photo.
Oh, that's.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
Claire's
guys.
the
I
best. mean, here's
promised
the
you
moonrise.
fun, Ed.
That's
Did
the
I say
moonrise.
it was gonna be fun today? The
It
best,
sure is.
this is the best crew you
What
could
is
ever
this?
have.
What is this made of?
The moon is made of Rice Krispie treats and fondant, which is a rollable icing. So it's all edible. It's a giant Rice Krispie treat, basically.
I'll eat that in the car on the way back.
It does travel well.
Do we want to carve into this now? I
we're
want
gonna
these
do the-
people here in the restaurant to have some.
Sure, let's do it. That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay,
We have a-
it's your birthday, whatever you want.
Have some plates and all?
Sure. Do you want me to bring some out or take the cake back and cut it up in the back?
Excuse
or-
me.
I
Would
think cut it
you,
out here is good.
would you enjoy some of our cake?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah, just have the servers bring some plates and
Everybody dance.
Oh, it was a tip from a friend from LA, Bill Cott,
Yeah.
who has said, hey, tell Ed that we appreciate that he was with Second City.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. No. So you were an improv player at one time.
I stayed legit, but I worked out with them.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not
They
real
came in-
acting, huh?
When they came, yeah. I was too bourgeois to understand. When they came to LA, because the Compass and Second City came out of the legit theater group that I was in Chicago, Playwrights Theater Club. And it would lasted for 2 years, and they segued into Compass, which already was starting. And that was Mike and Elaine and Shelley Berman and Barbara Harris, Severin Darden. And they lasted for a few years. And Paul went to Germany for a while and studied with the Berliner Ensemble. And then he came back and he took the Studebaker over for a while. And then he slowly graduated by himself into the Second City.
My, that's amazing. That's the beginnings of improv.
Yeah, and if anybody ever writes the history of improv, if he isn't Zeus, then the history isn't worth a damn.
Okay. All right.
And Zeus has spoken. You're our Zeus. I don't know if you know it, but you're our president, our leader. I've been in Screen Actors Guild since the 70s.
Well, you can
And-
forget about that organization.
It's not doing, I called you to ask who to vote for. You always told me who to vote for.
Be like that little guy.
Yeah.
Because I'll lose my cap if I do that. Are you shooting me, boy? I'm going to burn those films.